Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an attorney. I work at Myrick O'Connell. There are 70 of us there, biggest firm outside of Boston. That's my one ad. So there are 40 in Worcester and 20 in Westborough and 10 in Boston, but we all do different things, and so we all get to do what we really like. I like elder law. That's what I do. This show, though, is not about elder law. It's about my friends Frank and Mary and their kids, Peter, Paul, and Mary Jr. If you've been to one of my presentations, you know that their goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And in this case, that means Southborough, which means they don't want to go move with their kids in San Diego or Worcester or Boston. They want to be here. So the question is, who are the people they need to know, and what are the programs they need to know about if Frank and Mary want to stay here in Southborough? Now, I don't come from Southborough, I come from faraway Marlborough, so I don't know that, which is why I got this great co-host, Southborough resident Doug Peck, because he keeps finding these great people that we can talk to about the people, who are the people that you should know about. So Doug, whom do we have this month?
This month, we're going to start off a little bit different. We're going to, start off with somebody that is very knowledgeable in an area called Reiki, that a lot of people may have heard of but don't know a lot about. But it's really important for caregivers and for the people that they're caring for. Matter of fact, her name is Deborah Strafuss. She's from the little town of Wayland, not too far away.
Not too far away.
And has a business called Reiki for Alzheimer's and Caregivers, but she also works with normal people, sort of like us.
Yeah.
So
with people who are kind of on the road.
On the road a lot, yes.
That's where we're all on that road.
So
right?
This is Deborah, and she's going to tell us a little bit about.
And by the way, you keep doing this. You keep finding these great people. I never would have thought of this. So this is very exciting.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So go ahead.
So first, once again, you're not a local. You're from faraway Wayland.
I'm from faraway Wayland.
Yeah.
A little bit more east on Route 9.
Yeah. You can just we have a concept of that. And
yes.
Can you just kind of talk about how you, first what Reiki is, and then for some of us who don't understand, and how you ended up doing that?
Sure.
And then we can just kind of talk about it. That's a fascinating notion. You're dealing with both folks who've got memory issues and also folks who are helping those with memory issues.
Exactly.
Which you indicated included your mother at one time, which is one of the
Yes.
reasons you were interested.
Yes, that's how I got started. So the story of what is Reiki and how I got involved may be a little bit woven together, because I got involved because of my mother who had Alzheimer's, and I had no idea what Reiki was myself. So if you're watching this today and you don't know what Reiki is, don't feel alone. I actually ended up in my first class having no idea what was going on when the instructor said, "Would someone like to come down and have me put my hands on her while I talk?" And half the class was raising their hands going, me, and I was sitting there going, I have no idea what's going on.
Well, Reiki is one of those things where everyone's heard the word, but what is it exactly?
What is it?
Yeah.
And here's what I can offer to you. Reiki is actually a hands-on or hands slightly off the body healing technique that was developed in Japan in the early part of the 19th century. So it's actually recent. It is, however, comprised of older traditions and roots that have to do with Japanese Buddhism. And Yasuo Mikao, who was the creator of the system of Reiki, was a Tendai Buddhist monk. So there are some very old and ancient roots, but the actual practice of Reiki was developed in the early 1900s. It involves light touch or hands off, and it is really, the mechanism is not one that we have been able to determine yet scientifically.
Like what's really going on?
What's really going on, what we think is some low vibrational energy. The result, however, is a shift from what we call sympathetic nervous dominance to parasympathetic nervous dominance. So if you're not familiar with those terms,
so what is that?
sympathetic nervous dominance is the fight, or freeze response. So that's what happens when the saber-toothed tiger comes over the hill. And if you're too close to do anything, you freeze. And if you're a certain amount away, you fight like heck. And if you're far enough away, you run like crazy. And that, the adrenaline kicks in, all of the other systems are shut down to a certain point to enable you to survive. And the tiger goes away, and then everything's lovely.
Either that or you get eaten, in which
Right.
case
Right,
that's
which,
the reason
you
why
know.
that gene didn't replicate.
Right.
So
That's right,
the ones that
exactly.
could get away are the ones that
Yeah. Yeah.
here
Right.
we are. Yep.
But what we're all doing today is trying to survive. So what happens today is we don't have saber-toothed tigers, but our systems still respond that way. So the alarm clock goes off, the boss calls, you know, somebody cuts you off on the way to work. All of these are stressful producing incidents. And what happens is we have such a number of them today that our base stress level builds up much higher than we're aware of. We become normalized to it, but we're not in parasympathetic nervous dominance. So what happens in parasympathetic? That's the rest and digest phase. We're full
Rest
of
and digest.
Rest and digest,
Oh,
they used to
good.
call it. I
Yeah.
call it rest and refresh.
Yeah.
But rest and digest, because you digest much better. You
Yeah.
also sleep better. And all of your systems are made to function. Your circulatory system, your nervous system, your lymphatic system, your digestive system, everything is a system. And it's made to operate under parasympathetic nervous dominance at an optimal level. So when you help someone shift into that state by activating the relaxation response, their own self-healing mechanisms kick in. So Reiki in itself isn't healing you. You're healing yourself. Everyone has the ability to do that. Reiki facilitates
So
that.
Reiki's kind of the catalyst that
Yeah,
gets you where you want to go.
exactly.
And so we know that people with dementia often have a lot of stress because they have a lot of anxiety. They don't really understand what's going on with them. They don't understand how they become more dissociated with the outside world. And caregivers themselves don't understand and have a hard time communicating with people who have dementia because they're really sort of in a different world. Has that been your experience with because you're one reason I really have liked Deborah is because she's lived this and she's she has been a caregiver with her mother. And it's different than somebody who's just done this theoretically. It's someone who's really been through this and seen the results.
And
Yes.
you felt that level of stress, which is that I
Yes.
just watched. So my mother died in a nursing home. That's how I got involved in it.
Yeah.
As you said, you were involved. So many of the people who are involved or have this interest in dementia-related issues, it's because they've lived it, right? They've been really close. Right?
Yes, as a matter of fact, most other people are terrified of it and don't want to hear anything about it. It's a very scary disease over which we have little or no control. We don't have a clear path to prevention. We don't have a path to cure. So just like the scarlet A used to be the scarlet A, I call this the purple A.
Right.
And people just retreat from it terribly. They feel embarrassed and they feel really out of control.
And their friends retreat too, right? Because you
Oh, yeah.
feel so often.
Yeah.
We were just talking about a person whose mother had it, and she the daughter who actually was actually a senior center director in this area. Talked to the friend because they were a set of close friends. Oh, why don't you stop by? Oh no, we can't. We don't know what to say.
Exactly.
She's not the same person. It's,
Right.
Which of course for the person who therefore has the dementia, it's just even worse, right? Because
It's
like you say, it's the scarlet.
It's the purple A, and it's a frightening disease, and it's isolating and embarrassing, and there's so much ignorance out of there. But then on top of that, it's personally traumatic to the person with Alzheimer's and with the diagnosis. It's an incredibly traumatic journey, and to the loved ones caring for them and neighbors. Excuse me, neighbors and friends. Exactly, that's what I've heard. So I have a book that I've written about my journey with my mom. I'm going to hold that up and show you because I'm going to talk about this.
This is
in
an
a minute.
ad. You got to know this stuff.
This is my one ad.
This is really, you have to know about this stuff. This is
So this is called On Angel's Wings, A Journey Through Alzheimer's with My Mother. And it is a collection, it's a cathartic hybrid work of poetry and prose and artwork put together by a friend of mine. The artwork is, and the poetry and prose is mine. And the reason that I talk about this like that is this is a really personal experience. And I have literally, in going around and giving talks and readings from the book, I've had people who are church members and friends, and that's exactly what they say is, what do I say? Does it even make any difference? And I'm like, yes, go. And if you don't know what to say, sit there, take their hand, say, "Hi, Barbara. Hi, Don. It's George. I'm really glad to see you."
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't think of anything else, be there and
Just be
take
there.
their hand.
So what does Reiki do?
And
for
by the way,
for
I'm sorry that I
person?
made you,
Okay,
I made
that's
you
okay.
drift. My role
drifted.
he really does the show. My role is to provide kind of comic relief. So every once in a while, I get people. So I didn't mean to.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead,
No,
go
no,
ahead,
no,
go
this is
ahead.
fine.
Yes.
It's okay. So you were taking care of your mother, and
Right.
what did you feel a need for? This is
Oh.
when you started Reiki,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
So Mom was heading into late, mid-stage, early, late stage. How's that? Alzheimer's. And she was had gone into nursing home care, but she was at the point where she could no longer communicate. And words would come out completely garbled. It was impossible to know if she was happy, sad, in pain, anxious, anything. And this was my mother. And I had already watched memories go, but I really did not want to lose that last piece of connection with her. And I had to find something that was beyond words. And that's how I fell into Reiki. So I've experienced a lot of my family members feeling very frustrated when going to visit her. They didn't know what to do. They would end up being condescending and talk to her like she was a child because she couldn't understand well. And
Or
me,
past her.
or past her.
Right.
And me, my hands were never empty. When I went to see Mom, it was, "Hi, Mom, how are you?" And I would put these Reiki hands on her, and that relaxation response would begin to kick in. And many times you would see her, I describe it as a swimmer coming up from having dived in underwater and coming up to the surface, and you'd see her come up and her eyes would get clearer and she'd start to focus, and then she would be really listening, and you'd get that precious word that was a timely response, an appropriate response, and you knew that that connection was there. It got to the point where I could literally walk down the hall, she'd be in the wheelchair on the other side of the room, and she would sense me coming down the hallway and raise her eyes before anything happened. And I think that was the
That's
Reiki.
a really interesting comparison, because it really kind of goes back to this notion of the tiger. It's like you're not seeing the, because that you hit, not when the tiger's about to eat you, but when you see him coming, right? So
Right.
the notion of actually having a person who kind of triggers that response,
A connection.
you can even feel him from a distance.
Right. So it never bothered me that she didn't know my name was Debbie and that I was the daughter. I don't care. She knew me and I knew her. And that was the connection. And I tell that to so many people. Don't worry about these simple things about what the relationship is and what you're called. Do they know you? When you come in here and you're in sight range, are you connected? That's what matters, and it's that connection. And Reiki really seems to help that, because I actually work in memory care units now with people who never knew me before. And I'll go in as infrequently as one time a month, and these people will know me.
And they relax.
They're
when
responding.
They see you or you come in.
They're happy to see me, and they know that the Reiki, whatever that is, that's happening, and it's the Reiki. So,
And Doug had asked, so kind of, can you get us a sense of kind of what is it that what is it that actually triggers the response?
the mechanism really is unknown. The Reiki itself activates what's known as the relaxation response.
I asked the wrong question.
Okay.
Not what is the mechanism, but
yeah.
what is the thing? What do you do?
Oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
I can Well, I'm actually also a certified dementia practitioner.
Yeah.
So on top of the fact that Mom herself certified me personally over years,
Right.
I went
You
and
got
took
an A
the
from it,
course.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
I went and took the course also so that I could formalize this. And I also worked with Dr. Rea, who developed the habilitation therapy approach.
The guy who worked with John Seisel originally, then he worked with the Alzheimer's.
Right,
Right.
right. So I actually have a chapter on habilitation therapy in my book. So because of that, I always come in and make that contact first. But when I'm making that eye contact and the personal contact, calling by name and connecting, I'm also moving this way. So I allow the Reiki to begin to flow. And the Reiki itself is very relaxing. It brings about a state of calmness. So it calms the mind, calms the emotions.
And you're reaching out and actually touching the person.
I
or
will
just being
actually,
very close?
yeah.
We'll
I
use
will
that. We'll
Doug
pretend
can
that
be my.
right.
Doug can
Doug's
be my.
excellent.
Fine.
Yeah. So it would be
Yes.
something like this.
Yes.
Hi, Doug. It's Deborah.
Hi.
I'm here to visit you again today. Bring you some Reiki. It's so good to see you. And in the meantime, this is happening, and this is the connection. Now, if I have someone who's really agitated or walking, there's no need to actually make this physical contact. I can go like this. Hi, Doug. How are you? Or just sit here like this. As a matter of fact, the first client that I treated in the nursing home situation was very agitated and wouldn't let anyone touch her. I sat in the chair with her and just talked and let the Reiki flow. And by the time I was finished, she was smiling, relaxed. We were having a conversation, and she was scheduled to be transferred to somewhere else because she was such a problem there, but they had no further problems with her until the transfer.
So this is what we mean, we don't understand it, but it's energy work. There's energy all around us, and obviously the person who's performing Reiki has to do the work on themselves first.
Yes.
To be able to get calm, generate their own relaxation response in them, and then it sort of broadcasts out to others. They can feel it. They can feel that, you know, when someone walks into the room, you know, some people that walk into the room, it just sort of lights up the room, and there's a lot of activity goes on. That's one kind of. This is another person that walks into the room, and you begin to feel a calmness from them, and you don't know why, but you become calmer and more relaxed as well, and that begins to open up other lines of communication, because they're saying, okay, because again, dementia, and not just dementia, but I think everybody, as we age, has anxieties, you know, about death, about their health, about their situation. Because
we know a lot of people don't have dementia, but you're just old. Just so I'm turning 70 in 2 weeks. Right?
Okay.
Makes you think.
Yeah.
Makes you think, and you realize the older you get, you know, I'll have clients that'll say, "Gee, I don't understand. My mother, she's just so depressed all the time." Well, yeah, she's 93. She's thinking about death a lot.
Right.
You know, I mean, you just do, because it's true. It's kind of like close, you know.
Exactly.
It becomes realer
so
for
to
you.
be
And
dealing
if you
with
have
those
any
issues.
illness, you know,
It's exacerbated.
Yes,
it takes longer to get over.
Right.
You're more worried that it's going to do permanent damage.
Right.
I'm no spring chicken myself, so I understand all this. And I will just go a little further on your work with the use of the word energy, because people are oftentimes put off by that term. I have a son.
Sounds
who
so Eastern.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it?
I know.
However, not in our family, because my son has a physics and computer science degree. So when we sit down and talk about energy, I'm talking about very, very real things, about the fact that the energy that's in this hand, that the molecules and atoms that are in this hand that appear solid are traveling at hundreds of miles per second. And that's the illusion of what creates solidity for us. That everything
can't see
is
through you.
energy, and we're living in it, and we are it, and everything is in motion and going from one state of being to another. So, excuse me, that's the basis of Reiki. Reiki, the word itself in a very loose translation, is spiritual energy. And why are we talking spiritual? It's not a religion, it's a practice. But the practice and the calming effect help create a spiritual connection for people. And that is a very important and integral aspect of our lives as human beings. How we interface with spiritual and spirituality and spiritual items in our lives is important.
Right.
So the Reiki, by working with that relaxation response, allows us to interact more clearly with our own spirituality and take care of these needs. So I tell people, while you're making contributions to your 401k and your wealth, make contributions to your health. And I don't just mean your physical health, I mean your mental, emotional, and spiritual
And your
health.
spiritual health.
That's
Like
right.
theology aside. This isn't
Theology
about,
aside,
theology
this is
aside.
not a
This-
religion.
right.
It is your welfare and well-being as a human being.
Right. And there's one thing that we can all
planet.
agree to about God, whatever God is, that it's always the same. There are various, who knows,
Right.
but if it's there, it's
Well,
always the same.
Even
you know?
if you don't believe in
Yeah,
some
yeah.
external factor of God, there is a spiritual life that you live, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And that's important.
I think we've all experienced sort of nonverbal connections with
Yeah.
people. And again, that's what we're looking at here with somebody who can't verbalize anyway,
Yeah.
is to sort of go to that nonverbal place
Yes.
and still feel a connection. Because we do it all the time, I think, with people. It just,
We do.
but we just don't term it something special. And this is what Reiki does, I think, is sort of help you control that. You're initiating that nonverbal communication.
So what energy work has to do with intention. If you think about everything in your life that you have created, it began, as Albert Einstein said, with the imagination. Imagination is everything. But then from there we conceive of an idea, and then we expend the energy to bring the idea into being, okay? So everything comes from that place of interior creation. And when you're talking about Reiki, let me see, where was I going with this so I don't get lost? We were talking about the calming effect for people. I lost
That's
it.
okay. And that's good. That means she's like us.
Yeah.
I did lose it.
But I'm going to ask you to go someplace else, which
Okay.
is, so looking at people from that perspective, I'm going back to Doug's example of, well, some people just walk into the room and it gets really wired, and some people walk into the room and it gets calmer. So I would suppose one of your challenges in dealing with a family is, some people make it calmer, some people make it really energetic. So dealing with the various caregivers of a person who has memory issues, similarly, they're all kind of where they are
Yes.
in different places.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that kind of the family dynamics? 'Cause I would assume that one of the really valuable roles that you play is not only being with the person who has memory issues, but dealing with these other people and helping them on that kind of day-to-day level, perhaps be able to overcome the problems that they've had trying to communicate with their own mother or with their own dad.
Exactly.
Right?
And again, this grounding piece, and I remember what I was trying to come up to with you, Doug, so I'll weave it in together. A Reiki practitioner is a practitioner because they practice Reiki for themselves. So the whole point of being a practitioner is to be kind of a clear channel for this energy. This energy is around all of us all the time. We all have access to it. The only thing that makes me different is that I do a number of daily practices to help clear that and to learn to work intentionally with the energy so that when I go, I'm connecting and moving out of the way. The way that comes into working with families is you do the same thing, because you're not trying necessarily to go out and meet people where they are. You're creating a space to invite them into a place of calmness and clearness and grounding. From there, they can begin to see their own way.
And anybody who's a caregiver, whether it's for somebody with dementia or with any illness, just caregiving alone is very stressful.
Extremely.
And there's always a lot of anxiety. And if the first thing you teach somebody in caregiving, of whatever caregiving you do, is to say you've got to take care of yourself first. And that's what this does for a caregiver.
It is. If you learn to practice Reiki for yourself as a caregiver, you have an immensely wonderful tool for your own self-management. And this I just learned in retrospect because I learned Reiki from my mother. And I didn't realize how much it calmed me and took away that really sharp, painful edge of grief and fight and angst and just the emotional stuff that comes in when you're trying to deal with everything else. It smoothed that out of the way, so I was able to be there for Mom instead of wrestle with this stuff and be more involved with her journey. And that's another piece of Reiki, is that it's a wonderful life transition tool as well. It helps create a calm, peaceful death and transition. And I'm sorry, that's where we're going in Reiki. This is a journey to the end, and you've been invited as a caregiver to accompany someone in one of the most intensely difficult journeys to this path. It's
journey
an
to the
honor,
end.
a
And
journey
that people
to the
just don't want
end.
to talk about it.
Well,
And we
Yeah,
don't.
Of
Of
course
course.
not, you know?
But you know, there's some beautiful things you can do around death in terms of envisioning and creating the death that you want to have. But in order to do that, you must be able to put aside the fear or face it and walk through it.
You know, it's funny, as you were describing that, I was thinking about this book that John Zeisel had written, who was with Dr. Ray's old partner. The chapter that talked about taking the person who has dementia as the grace in your life. Once you can accept that that person is
Absolutely.
what that person is giving you, because among other things, to the person with that memory problem, there's no past and there's no future. And so all of your anxieties about what's about to happen tomorrow and all of your guilt about all the terrible things that happened before are completely irrelevant to this person. And to the extent that that person can be the window through which you're coming into the present
Yes.
and just being in the present, that person becomes a grace to those around them. It's like the way someone described to me, you know, the way today people appreciate much more folks who have cognitive issues.
Yes.
Children who have cognitive issues who are always regarded as, oh my God, you know, isn't that terrible? And
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But the compassion, I think, that has come to our society as a result of people's being more aware of and helpful and inclusive of people with cognitive issues, with young kids in the school system, it's tremendous. But similarly with dealing with folks who are older who are going through this, it can really be a thing that helps you grow.
Yeah, it's one of those gifts that you uncover and wrap. I actually wrote a poem called 100 Knots, and it's K-N-O-T-S and N-O-T-S,
Okay.
talking about the knots that are involved in caregiving and how untying the knots one by one is actually opening a gift. And very, very important. The other piece about Reiki that's very interesting and about Alzheimer's is that it brings you into the present. This is exactly what you're talking about, because if you step into the present, what do you not have? You do not have the resentments and angers of the past or the worries and fears of the future. You are here with the person, and that brings you into the here and now. So there's 5 precepts that we work with in our practice of Reiki, and it goes for today only. Do not anger. Do not worry. Be grateful for your many blessings. Have integrity, be true to your way and your being, and be kind and compassionate to yourself and to others. So they all walk hand in hand. If you leave the angers of the past and the fears of the future and come into the presence of being grateful and being authentic, then you develop the capacity for compassion.
So Doug,
Well, I would just want to wrap up. Okay.
I was just
go
going
ahead.
to say,
Yeah.
this wasn't just a good guess, this was a blessing.
Oh, good. Yes, it was.
This was a blessing.
It was. And I know, because I know people are going to say, well, how do I learn more? Because I know once we've talked a lot. And
Yeah.
it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to experience it.
it.
And so if somebody wants that, there's you, and we'll put up information about you.
We'll put that
But there's
on a-
other
we'll have a
places
banner
too,
on the-
because
yeah.
more and more hospitals are using this.
Yes.
Right? Because they
Exactly.
find that, and hospitals are terrible places just build your anxiety as soon as you go in.
Just getting close.
I
Right,
know,
and
so,
we didn't
you
even
know.
talk about that, but Reiki
No.
is used commonly in all of our major Boston hospitals, in the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, because it's so helpful with the effects of treatment, and in hospitals because, you know, after you have the trauma of surgery, your body needs to recover, and Reiki supports recovery, and so you find it. in these places. So finding a Reiki practitioner. I'm a member of the IARP, which is the International Association of Reiki Professionals, and there is a directory on there. You can go look for a Reiki professional in your area. Spirit of Change magazine has a whole section of holistic practitioners. You can certainly come to my website and ask me for an inquiry.
Right. Or come to you as well.
Or come to me.
Yeah, because we're
I'm
not
in
that far away.
this Metro West area.
And you would come out to somebody out here on a basis?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I do home visits. I
Okay.
go to facilities. I'll work with you.
I just
Great.
wanted to make
Yes.
sure people understood that.
No, and I think that's well put, and I think that should be included also in that bar. So if you can get us that information,
Okay.
that way people won't have to have just remembered what you just said. It'll be sitting there for a while for them if they want
Right.
to take it down.
Wonderful.
All right, that would be
Yes.
great.
good.
This is
Yes.
great.
Oh, good.
Let's keep doing this.
Okay.
It's just a real pleasure.
It's magic. I don't
It's
know.
magic. I don't know how he
I
does
have a high bar now.
Yeah, well, it's
you know?
because you live in Southborough. You just have this ability to do this stuff. So anyway, thank you very, very much.
You're very, very
Doug,
welcome.
thanks
Yeah.
again. This
You're
is just
welcome.
great.
Good.
Thanks for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough. Thank you.